Ammar will have to miss out on the intros. We'll do a quick sort of round the horn. This. Welcome. I mean, most of you guys I know, some of me for the first time, Michael Goldberg. I'm our executive director of the Veale Institute. Today's kind of a reunion tour because three of our heavy users of our programs are our speakers, but we'll get to them in a second. So, Tori, do you want to go first? Just introduce yourself to the group.
Yeah, I'm Tori. I graduated undergrad in 2016, got a master's in 2017. Worked in marketing startups or marketing roles at startups, and now I have my own business where I acquire revenue generating websites, grow them, scale them, and that's a thing. So yeah,
Great.
doing my own thing.
Hi, I'm Celine. I'm junior year chemical engineering student. I'm from Taiwan. I'm an exchange student here for 1 year. And I am currently working in a startup company, Taiwanese startup company doing solar panel coatings. And I'm interested to learn everything.
I'm Tim Milanich. I'm the Chief Investment Officer for the endowment here on campus. And I help Michael out on the Alumni Venture Fund.
Arthur Grabowski, I was case 07 and I run a company that's called Extendify that the case fund invested in.
Eva Jesse Gesh. I'm a Veale Snyder Fellow, computer science major and sophomore with interest in robotics and AI.
I'm Christian. I'm a senior studying computer science and finance. I've been involved in the venture space here for many years. I love startups and tech and all that stuff.
Hello everyone, I'm Amir. My full name is Amir, but everybody call me Amir. And I founded a tech startup and we built a Duolingo for sign language basically. Great to meet you all.
I'm Katie. I'm a sophomore studying finance and history, and I've been really involved with VC here, and I'm really interested to learn more.
I'm Allison. I'm a junior here studying finance economics with minors in public health and finance. I'm personally very interested in the intersection between venture capital and healthcare. Excited to meet you all.
All right. Hi everyone. My name is Adrian. I'm currently a freshman in chemical engineering, probably concentrating with 2 minors, one in entrepreneurship and one in CS. I have a few software engineering internships under my belt, but that's like my highlight of professional experience. I do have like a little bit of background in venture capitalist and startup experience, so like that's where I'm currently navigating. Yeah, that's me.
Hi, I'm Britton. I'm the program manager for LaunchNet, which is a bit like of a consulting service for student and alumni ventures. I am going to ask that if you have not signed in today to please do so. I already checked you in, Adrian. And Michael, unless you have anything else to say, we can kick it over to me.
Great. Yeah, I see Ammar is joining. Didn't have there he is.
Hey.
It's lucky when you have your speakers and I'm text and you're like, where are you? Aren't you supposed to be on my call? So it's great. Ammar, Regina and Will, thank you guys for doing this. Some of the feedback we've gotten from folks that have done our speaker series, because we do folks that are later in their career and are telling stories as they look back on things that they've been doing sometimes for sort of 30, 40 years working in tech and doing startups, and that's great. One piece of feedback we got was we'd love to hear from some younger ones that are sort of more recently have sat in your shoes. And the 3 folks in today's panel, and Amy, I'll turn over to you in a second, as I mentioned, as we were setting up before you hopped on, we're like heavy users of our programming. I mean, I'm quite proud, and we'll talk more about it today. And some of you around the table are involved in ways to learn about entrepreneurship through wearing an investing hat. We do obviously have some people that are founding companies and doing it in other ways, but I feel like we'd go toe to toe against any university in the country in terms of what we do to give people those experiences. And one of the things I think we're most proud of is not everybody that is involved in our activities, like gets jobs in venture or sort of venture related, but the fact that Ammar, Regina, and Will all went from very recently being here, working on NUSBF, BCIC, and our Alumni Venture Fund, and now are doing it for real is awesome. So we're really proud of them. So another one of our heavy users of these programs, Amos Langsner, who's been involved in all of those activities, is going to moderate, and we'll have plenty of time for questions. So Over to you, Amos.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. And thank you, Ammar, Regina, and Will for talking with us today. Really appreciate it. I had the pleasure.
Put your video on.
Yeah. Should I unmute too?
No, don't unmute, don't.
I had the pleasure of working with all three of you guys, you know, at NEOSVF, ECIC, and the Alumni Venture Fund. So it's great to see all of you again. So I guess first question was just, you know, maybe starting, we'll just go top to bottom. Ammar, then Regina, then Will. If you could just introduce yourselves for the crowd. You know, what firm you work at, what your role is there, and then just a little bit about your background.
Cool. Hey everyone, nice to meet you all. I'm Ammar. I'm an associate at XYZ. We're an early stage venture fund based in San Francisco. I guess we're all generalists, but we focus primarily on enterprise software, fintech, and a lot of public sector stuff. Before XYZ, I was at a fund called TrueBridge Capital. There, I was investing in growth investments, so Series Bs and later, and then a lot of secondary investments. And then the core focus of TrueBridge was a fund of fund. And so I got to learn a lot about the broad venture industry and who exists in it through that lens, which is really interesting.
Hi everyone, I'm Regina Sosa. So just as a disclaimer, I am not a venture capitalist, but I do work very closely with small businesses and entrepreneurs. I am Capital Access Manager for the Economic Development Corporation of Kansas City. We are the nonprofit quasi-agency of the city of Kansas City, Missouri. My work focuses on primarily our Main Street businesses between 0 to 2 years in operation. We do have some resources for other businesses. Since I joined in October 2023, we have done grants, a savings match program, microloans for small businesses. We also have a Launch KC program, which provides grants up to $60K to our early stage technology companies. And then recently, we are launching a storefront vacancy program to help businesses get into their first brick and mortar. And we're doing all of this work in advance of the World Cup coming to our city next summer.
Hey everyone, I'm Will. I graduated undergrad in 2023 and then from the master's program in December of 2023. And then pretty shortly after joined my current fund, Mutual Capital Partners, MCP for short. We are a traditional venture fund here in Cleveland, so I was very happy to stay local. Apologize for not being able to be in person today, but we invest in medical device and healthcare IT companies. So we put a couple $1 million up front, work closely with the entrepreneurs, like to sit on the board, and be very active investors. So we are a small team of 4, including myself. So my day-to-day involves basically everything from deal flow to sourcing, to diligence support, to portfolio support, to fund administration. So it's been great to work with a small team and remain in the local ecosystem.
Awesome. Thank you guys very much for the intros. So first question I have, as maybe many people here know, Ammar, Regina, and Will were all involved in all 3 of CASE's main venture capital clubs, programs, NEOSVF, Northeast Ohio Student Venture Fund, VCIC, Venture Capital Investment Competition, and AVF, Alumni Venture Fund. So I was wondering if each of you could just share what your favorite memory from your time at CASE and any one of the venture clubs was. Just make it simple. We'll just go Ammar, Regina, Will again.
Well, hopefully you say hang out with me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give 2. One was learning all about deciduous therapeutics, which was one of the first deals that we did at the Alumni Fund, and being able to chase that deal because I feel like there was a lot of interesting heat around it and interesting characters around it. That one was really fun. And then the other was driving out to the VCIC competition with like 6 great friends and just learning about 3 new companies and spending the night learning 3 new companies, like sitting in a hotel room, just working together, laughing together, ordering DoorDash and eating good food and talking about cool ideas.
Yeah, I'll echo that. The people for sure. So when I was in the three programs, I think there was like maybe two women, Megan and then myself. Just looking at the room right now, I'm so happy to see a lot more women in the room. So go girl power. So I would say like my one of my top ones was recruiting Evelyn, who was in a prize program, which is like STEM, entrepreneurship related. So having Evelyn join was really cool. Having like a new perspective on as part of these programs, and then the connections, right? So Will, Amari, Professor Goldberg, and then it's funny how like through all of these opportunities, I was connected to like future opportunities. So Dan Hampu at the Burton D. Morgan Foundation, who connected me to Venture for America, which is how I found my current role. So just the people and being able to foster lifelong connections that lead to opportunity.
Yeah, no, same for me as Michael, as I'm sure you recall, it was Michael's recommendation that led to my current job. So certainly very grateful for that. But yeah, I might just go a little bit basic and just say the bounce events for Neo SVF at the end of the semester. It was always really cool to hear our team pitch and then hear the other schools pitch. Everyone thinks about companies differently and diligence differently. So that was always very interesting, and it was great to meet the other schools. And then for the alumni fund, just the team meetings were really interesting. The composition of the fund is very unique. A lot of people with different backgrounds. It was unique to hear different perspectives, and it was always fun to hang out at Michael's house and meet his dogs.
Awesome. I love all of those. My next question is, since all of you guys graduated, what's the biggest thing that you've learned, working in, early stage finance and working with startups? What's like the biggest thing that maybe you weren't exposed to in undergraduate that you've learned since entering the workforce?
I can start off. Maybe not so much technical skills, but just, we operate very heavily in healthcare. Healthcare is really where we do all of our work. I got some exposure to that at Case. Case is research focused, very STEM focused. So a lot of the companies that we looked at for the alumni fund were, healthcare, biotech. So I learned some skills there, but when you work for a fund who operates in kind of niche verticals, you just have to learn a ton, and healthcare is a difficult industry. So I've learned a ton about healthcare, still a ton left to learn. It's an interesting field because it's just changing every day. So certainly kind of just navigating the industry landscape and learning everything that comes with that.
As I mentioned earlier, so the EDC is the quasi nonprofit agency of the city. So what I've learned and have had to navigate is just the politics of it all. So for myself, I'm in it for the impact to help the small businesses. But when working with city council so closely, I had to identify which city council members were the most advocates for small businesses. And then when presenting to council, they want the data, they want the budget, they want all the KPIs about the programs that we are creating and facilitating. And so being able to convey what the impact on Kansas City and the region will be, and the politics of it all is what I've learned the most these past 2 years.
So this is like kind of a cop-out answer because I'm still like learning this, and I think I'll probably be learning it for the rest of my life. But I originally like underappreciated how much that each new deal, each new idea, each new person like compounds with you and informs your decisions and your thinking and your theses for the next ones. And the next ideas, the next companies, the next people. Um, but I think that is like what I've, if there's like one thing that I've learned, oh, this is like not a one thing that I've learned, but this is, if there's like, one theme of a thing that I've learned, it's the because like we're investing in all these different sectors, it's like the compounding knowledge that comes from just like looking at so many new ideas and so many new companies and so many new markets. And so maybe being able to like crystallize like what is important for the things that we're looking at faster. Um, if that makes sense. But it's definitely a cop-out answer. Not very tactical.
Awesome. My next question, so I think it's great that we have, three speakers here who focus on a variety of industries. Ammar, more so in like, SaaS, as you mentioned, software, fintech, Regina on the small business side, Will on the healthcare side. I was wondering, outside of AI, because that's where the buzz is right now, what are some technologies, startup trends, stuff like that going on in the world that you're following and that you're really excited about?
I would say for us, within healthcare, value-based care has become very interesting. So for those who aren't familiar, it's basically a care model where providers get paid for patient outcomes rather than like traditional fee for service. Um, I would say that it's not a huge scene right now, but I think it's definitely coming, and we've looked at some startups kind of operating in the space, optimizing provider payments and stuff like that. So that's been super interesting for us.
I would say in the small business world here in Kansas City, we're really looking at the World Cup next summer, as I mentioned earlier. Um, and it's, not necessarily what small businesses can get a contract with FIFA, right? But it's more so with an influx of tourists. We expect over 600,000 people to visit Kansas City next summer. How can our small businesses serve the tourists that are coming in a cultural capacity? And then again, with that soccer, that football theme, how can we serve them? And how can we make Kansas City it not just be a stop for them next summer, but put Kansas City on the map as a place for international visitors to come back on? And so something that we're working on right now is what we call like a Kansas City game plan. So making sure that small businesses are lender ready, but also that lenders are ready to lend to small businesses and that can identify how much and with what products they're able to serve our small businesses. So very World Cup, very soccer heavy right now.
I mean, there's like so much that is interesting. A lot of it is AI and AI services, and there's like many different ways to tackle AI services. Then also within AI, there's like I know this question is not supposed to be about AI, and then within AI, there's like interesting um, uh, trends and things that you can target that you could never target before. Not AI. I mean, to give a specific example of a company that we've been invested with for quite some time, but kind of describes like the thesis of, oh, when the price goes down of something, a market opens up. One of those companies is Apex Space. They make satellite buses. Um, Historically the bottleneck to send stuff into space because it was prohibitively expensive was launch. SpaceX kind of met that bottleneck and really decreased the cost for sending like stuff up into space. The next bottleneck were these satellite buses, which historically you would go to engineering consulting services type firm. They would give you an outrageous quote, and it would take a really long time. Epic Space has now productized the satellite bus, and the thesis is that if you make the cost to send stuff up into space, both launch and now making the satellite bus, and you make it much faster, the market is super elastic, and there are more people, both on the government side and the commercial side, that want to send stuff up into space, and that seems like it's playing out to be true. And so we're looking for what are the next bottlenecks after that. Maybe now it's oh, there's like so much in in Leo Geo, and now we need to figure out, oh, like how do we get stuff out? Like like there are just like new bottlenecks that we're looking for in space, and um, stuff, yeah, that's not AI, but AI is definitely interesting. We're spending a lot of time there.
Awesome. I love it. My next question is, so, obviously, all of you guys have spent quite a bit of time here in Cleveland, and now Will staying in Cleveland, Ammar and Regina moving to different locations. I was wondering if each of you could talk about, in the specific locations you're in, what are some of the challenges and then the benefits of investing in companies in those cities?
I think part of the challenge of a smaller market like Cleveland and other Midwest cities, is that there's just not as much capital available. So that's both, one, a challenge for startups because there's not as much funding available, but also for investors like us because, we only invest $2 to $3 million up front. And a lot of the times, kind of the stage we invest, that's not going to fill out the whole round size. So we need to bring in other investors. We want to have partner investors with us at the table. So it can be a challenge to find other money. And once we've already invested, typically our companies are raising follow-on funding rounds. They're going to bring in additional outside capital. So thinking very strategically about who we could bring in, kind of how we can best position the company to raise successfully in the future. I would say that is both a challenge, but also um, um, a good thing in part for investors like us because markets like where Ammar invests in tend to be more competitive. Valuations are higher. There's more funds. There's more money. Here, we kind of feel like we have the pick of the litter. We can be very, very selective with our investment criteria. We really only make 2, 3 investments a year at the most. So we are very selective. We only invest in companies that all 4 of us are completely in on. So I would say it's both a challenge and also rewarding.
Omar, you want to go ahead since I'm kind of different?
Oh, sure. I think the biggest challenge for sure is like site. There's so much, and we want to see everything. And we're a small investment team. Like we would love to meet every single company, and so probably like site, and that's like what keeps me up. And yeah.
Yeah, so in Kansas City, we're also a smaller market. I would say there's maybe like 3 venture capital firms that are active in the city. Um, Angel funding, not a big thing here. So the angel statewide tax credit was just introduced in our state legislature maybe a couple of months ago. So that's something that we're still working on to get more angels investing in Missouri. And then on that same note, so we have a state line, Kansas City, Kansas, and Kansas City, Missouri, which can be a blessing and a curse. So I focus on Kansas City, Missouri. We often lose a lot of businesses to the Kansas side because there just are more investors over there. There's more opportunity, lower costs, etc. And so having businesses move back and forth can be a challenge. Um, but it can be a blessing because we do a lot of regional collaboration. So Kansas City, Kansas, the Kansas suburbs, Network Kansas is a huge organization who does a lot of good work in Kansas. And so the ability to collaborate as a region and not just stay, in our silo here in Kansas City, Missouri.
And maybe just to give specific examples. So Regina mentioned the 3 funds that operate in Kansas City. MCP is really the only true venture fund in Cleveland right now. You have some economic development type entities, some angel group type entities, but when it comes to traditional venture capital, we're really the only main group. And that's both a challenge, as I mentioned, but also it gives us, we feel like we have a really great tap on what's going on in the Cleveland healthcare market, kind of the Ohio market more broadly. It would be great to have other funding here, but it just is what it is for the time being. And I think given that a majority of the room is in Cleveland at the moment, we love being in Cleveland because of the healthcare scene. you have the Cleveland Clinic, you have UH, you have some smaller providers and payers. It's a really great market to be in. There's a lot of great healthcare happening kind of within Cleveland and Ohio more broadly. And I would say the Midwest in general is certainly on the come up. I don't know if you would agree, Regina, but more venture funds are popping up here and there. You've seen bigger success and bigger exits within the Midwest. So it's an exciting time, I would say, to be a Midwesterner and a Clevelander.
Awesome. Well, I've got plenty more questions, but I want to open it up to the audience now to ask a few. So yeah, you could, anyone who has a question, just raise your hand and ask.
Don't be shy.
So my question is like less kind of general here, very like a little bit specific. So I heard that you guys all kind of were part of the Neo SVF like club as well, and there are a few people here as well who are like part of the club. Yeah, we got the secretary right here. And so like my startup just like got accepted into the program and we're moving towards the due diligence process. And so I wanted to know what are the like tips and what are the advices you would give me in the next few steps that so that like I can end up as a successful startup and be able to get the funding and hopefully move towards the future with no SWF. Very specific, sorry about that.
It would be helpful to know what type of company first being place.
Oh, it's a SaaS tech-based company. So we made the Duolingo for sign language basically. So complete software based and it has AI as well in it. So I can give you a quick pitch if you want, or if that's enough information.
Well, I'm happy to provide specific advice. I'll give you my email and
that would be great.
We can talk about building narratives. A lot of early stage narratives is on timing of the market, and that timing could be like if it's a hardware thing, sometimes it's like a cost curve thing where it's like, oh, drones are really interesting because drones and like autonomy is really interesting because the cost of LiDAR has gone down 90% over the past 2 years. And so now like so there's like you could actually build a really scalable, interesting drone platform. Sometimes it's just like urgency of like newfound urgency of customers. So for Will, when he was talking about value-based care, there's like two new standards. One is like RADV audits are going to be more in depth, I think. Like the government's hiring a bunch more coders, and so like there's new urgency in RADV, and there's like a new risk model. They moved from like V24 to V28, specifically in value-based care. So like that's like a newfound urgency for customers. But like it depends on like the specific business. Sometimes it's like, oh, you could never do this thing before. You can do it now because over the past 6 months we now have reasoning AI models, and so the reasoning AI models can do this thing, whereas historically we couldn't do this thing. So different things are unlocked. But yeah, I'm happy to talk a little bit more about the specific narrative of your company later.
Thank you.
I would say for your company and anyone else thinking about being a founder, it's a large part of Neo SVF and the students who will pitch your business is their ability to communicate kind of your ROI and your value proposition. So as a founder, it's super important to be able to articulate very clearly exactly how your business is unique, exactly how you're positioned in the market to succeed, exactly how you're different from competitors in the market. That's a pretty large part of Neo SVF. So for your Neo SVF specifically, I would just recommend that you think super strategically about that.
Yeah, 100% agree. And I would just add to that, like actually try to build a relationship with the students in NUSVF and the university that you're matched with. The companies that I remember the most are the ones who like would come in to our NUSVS weekly meetings and like give us a pitch, answer the questions, and just actively try to build that relationship. Since again, like the students are the ones analyzing the company and preparing the ultimate proposal. So yeah, good luck with that.
Any more audience questions?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Can you folks give everybody an idea of what a day in the life is at your job? Obviously, two of you work in, kind of similar businesses, but I think what's important for people to understand is how flexible you need to be when you're, kind of low person on the totem pole and kind of, so just an idea of kind of what you do on a day-to-day basis as you jump around and meander and just learn so much.
Yeah, I can go first. So I think I mentioned earlier that I work with two founding partners, a principal and myself. So I guess when you look at the totem pole, I'm on the bottom, but since there's four of us, we do everything, unanimously. When I joined the fund, they were like, you're one of four now. You have 25% of the vote, and we're not going to do anything without your approval. So it's nice to have a lot of responsibility as a young person, but that kind of translates into, a lot of responsibility in the day to day. So, every day looks different, which keeps it fresh. I would say the favorite part of my day to day is kind of engagement with our portfolio. I mentioned we sit on the board of almost all of our portfolio companies. I personally sit in on almost all of our board meetings with whoever sits on the board for our team. So we spend a ton of time, thinking about our portfolio, how we can help them, thinking about the board decks and how to prepare for board meetings and everything in between. As a young person at a venture fund, you'll certainly spend a lot of time doing diligence, so evaluating potential investment opportunities, deal flow management. So, keeping track of the companies that you're looking at, the companies that you want to keep track of. Not everything, aligns when it comes to stage. So we've met with plenty of companies who are exciting, but too early for our investment stage. So we catch up with them once or twice a year. So managing all of that. A lot of venture funds as a young person, you're responsible for sourcing, which means finding new deals. So I definitely spend a fair amount of time doing that. Whether that be meeting other investors so we can exchange deal flow, traveling to conferences. Ohio VC Fest is coming up next week, which is Ohio's big venture event in Cleveland. I would highly encourage any of you kind of interested in venture or startups to attend. I think you can get student passes. I think maybe the university sent some people last year, so definitely bother Michael about that. And then, a lot of the times for a smaller fund, you're also doing some of the fund admin stuff. So, managing your investor base, answering their questions. It can be as simple as, some of the quarterly reporting, writing letters to your investors, doing like the tax and financials for the fund. So when you work for a small team, it is kind of a little bit of everything, but I think it keeps it fresh and exciting.
Yeah, I think if you
Ammar?
break down venture, there's really like four things. Um, like seeing, picking, winning, and portfolio support and value add. And really, um, they all like feed into uh like seeing, really, I think. Seeing and picking, because like if you can't see the company, you can't pick it. If you can't win it, it doesn't, like, nothing matters. So if you don't see it, you can't win it. Like, so it's a lot of it's like it is seeing for sure. Um, a typical day might be some meeting some founders, learning more about a new market, um, doing diligence on a company, which could be like expert calls, reference calls, for the later stage investments. It could be, building projections on a financial model. And a lot of like the day-to-day is like very flexible. Like you could have a deal that comes the day before and it's like very interesting, or the night before and it's like very interesting, and you need to run at it in the next 24 hours. And so you need to just cancel everything and just focus on this one thing. But um, I think if you break it down, it's like seeing, picking, winning, and value add, access value add.
So I'm kind of a one person access to capital team, so every day is different for me and it's wearing a lot of hats. And my role is also basically like a program management. So at one point I was managing like 5 programs at the same time. Right now I'm managing 2 programs. So it's a lighter load at the moment, but a typical day to day is anything from like answering small business calls, answering their emails and referring them to the resources in the city that they can take advantage of if our programs aren't right for them. But then it's also a lot of like strategy and collaboration with other entrepreneur support organizations, getting on the same page and thinking of a strategy of like how do we make it easier and better to be a business in Kansas City. And then the last part is like the strategy reform. So again, I work very closely with City Hall, and so evaluating our regulations and permits that small businesses have to obtain, reducing the fees and making, again, it easier for businesses to stay in Kansas City, Missouri, so that we don't end up losing them to Kansas or other surrounding states.
I think it's very helpful for, I know many people here may be interested in careers in VC to understand more about what life's actually like. Any more, Christian?
Hey guys, great to see you all again. I guess this one's more for Will and Ammar, more traditional venture question, but just curious, from your perspective, macroeconomically, what's the venture landscape sort of like nowadays in terms of deal activity, early stage, later stage, and even what M&A is looking like, from your perspective? Just curious more from the venture capital point of view.
Yeah, I would say deal flow wise, it's been pretty strong for us. My fund's been around for 20 years now. We operate in fairly, I don't know if niche is the right word because medical device and healthcare software are pretty broad, but within medical device we have our specific niches that we focus on, and kind of same for software. And we've grown close with a number of funds that we've co-invested with. So our deal flow is not something that we typically struggle with. I would say when it comes to valuation, you kind of saw this spike post-COVID. There was a lot of government money kind of flowing into the market, and I would say that has dramatically come down. I'm curious, maybe Ammar's opinions on that, but I would say specifically for the Midwest, valuations just tend to be more reasonable. Round sizes are smaller. Companies tend to be more capital efficient. So, maybe prioritizing capital efficiency over explosive growth. We don't have $50 million check writers every left and right that you're going to look here in the Midwest. And we invest outside the Midwest as well, but we do the vast majority of our investing in Ohio and in the Midwest. So valuations coming down are certainly favorable for us. We feel like we can kind of put out terms that are favorable to us, but also fair to the entrepreneur. And in terms of M&A, liquidity has certainly been a major struggle for a lot of venture funds in the last few years, kind of following the post-COVID spike. We've been fortunate enough, specifically to sell 2 or 3 of our companies in the last year and a half. I would say though that we're not taking companies out to market. Some of the bigger strategics just aren't bidding, and aren't super active in the M&A space right now. So we don't want to take out our really quality assets and have a price paid for them that is not what we think they're valued at. So just kind of taking it one step at a time. I think the M&A markets are opening up a little bit. Some of the bigger strategics are getting more active. Specifically in healthcare, we've seen a couple of recent IPOs, both in kind of the digital health and software space, as well as the medical device space, which is encouraging to see. IPOs have been pretty slow, I would say, in the last couple of years. So if that starts to open up and the M&A markets start to open up, it would be exciting for sure.
Yeah, I think I'm also seeing high velocity. It seems like there's two different markets. Like one is AI and then everything else.
Mhm.
And the AI type market is is moving at like a very, very quick pace. Like stuff is getting done 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, like very, very quick, at very high valuations. Like people, just interesting people leaving, interesting companies, and I mean, like getting terms without even leaving the company, and just like, oh, if you had an idea, here's 10 million. Like, and then also a lot of quick revenue. So like one, like 0 to 10, 0 to 5. I mean, you're seeing like the Fixer AI and the Cursor and the Cognitive, like all these companies are growing really, really, really quickly. And it's like a question of, okay, is this like durable revenue, or just like point in moment revenue? And so that's like a big question, because even if you get to 1 to 10 in 2 months, is this just like, are people going to turn really, really quick? And in a lot of consumer AI, we're seeing that, where it's like, oh yeah, this company will get to 1 to 10 really, really quick, and then it'll be a built-in feature in OpenAI or some other product that already has a distribution. Like there are a lot of email drafter companies that have been growing really fast, and then when Gmail or Superhuman adds these like AI capabilities of just like having a draft, which is not like, probably not a whole business in itself. Like the revenue just goes away very, very quickly. And so that's like a little scary. Um, it seems like the because a lot of these firms have gotten bigger, like the historical A firms have gotten bigger, has moved, like the metrics have actually moved up. And there's like a whole new crop of like post-seed Series A or like early Series A funds that have started to emerge. Um, so there's like it seems like there's like two different kinds of A's now, which has been interesting. All these letters don't actually mean anything, I think, but like it just like does seem like a really interesting phenomenon, where these historical Series A firms have gotten much bigger, and so they want to wait for big, like more traction and more proof to invest 20-30 million dollar checks in A's. And so it's like a new phenomenon, where you have a lot of these like new funds that have come up to like service uh, the what used to be like an A, I guess.
Mhm. And I think part of the reason that deal flow is pretty strong for a lot of venture funds right now, including MCP and Ammar's fund, is that, following the post-COVID spike, valuations were super high, and I think we've seen a lot of founders not want to come down from those valuations, and they've really struggled to raise because of that. Investor appetite is just different in this market that we're operating in. There's a lot of uncertainty kind of in the macro environment right now, with everything that's going on at the federal government level, and with tariffs. So, a lot of those companies have struggled to raise. And so I would say that there's super high demand for funding right now and a little bit lower supply. And for investors like us, that's a pretty good dynamic, because you see a lot of deal flow. You see valuations starting to come down as companies struggle to raise, because these businesses need cash to keep, the business afloat and to keep growing. So I would say it's a positive dynamic right now for VC and investors more broadly.
More audience questions?
So this is a question back to you guys. As I guess students who went through the VC clubs, what do you guys think is the most important skill that or the skill that you learned to get into the mindset of a VC?
Being able to ask good questions. The founder and teams they're going to be overly optimistic, because they always are, and that's great. But as a VC, you really need to understand, the right questions to ask to really understand the value proposition of the company. How do we think about the financial projections in a more realistic light? And during the deal flow and kind of diligence process, we are going to ask everything that we possibly can think of. We're going to talk to everyone that we possibly can. And if we don't know the right questions to ask them, then we're not going to get the information that we need. So, if you have a question, never be afraid to ask it. There's almost no bad questions. So just getting used to honing that skill, I think, is super important in venture.
I think specifically from my time at Case, it is both like the context switching and then just ability to like just practicing working hard, I guess, because the classes at Case are like tough and uh it yeah, like building a good work ethic.
Yeah, I would just add to that, like research, be a really good researcher. You're not gonna be an expert about the industry and the company that comes and pitches, but put in the effort and the time to research and learn and ask questions. So yeah.
Yeah, as a follow-up to what Regina just stated, so is there any way that you guys have like passively gone into like passively learning about a market? Because like obviously the market, like let's say AI, is so it's expanding at a really high rate, and like having knowledge in like across that entire region is like pretty, I don't know, out of my mind right now. So I wanted to know like if there was a way that you guys personally just do that, like maybe it could be through connection, through online like articles that just pop up on your feed, I guess. Stuff like that.
I think just being in a space, you just start to learn pretty quickly what's going on. You get a feel for trends. So that's just a big part of it is just being in the space and looking at different companies every day and seeing your own portfolio companies. I would say that's a huge area of learning for us. We compare a lot about, what's going on at all of our different portfolio companies, and we compare that to the new deals that we're analyzing. So that's a big part of it. And then, to the last point that you mentioned about articles and reading, I think almost every VC does a ton of reading. I subscribe to a few different kind of industry specific newsletters. So those really help me kind of understand what's going on for someone newer to the space. I also will write my own stuff. So, for value-based care, for instance, that's a newer market that we're looking at, and I just don't know as much about that yet. So, really just doing my own research, trying to understand the major players, kind of the trends within the space. So, a big part of that is just reading.
Thank you.
Yeah, two like specific ones I would recommend is the Full Ratchet podcast. So that just looks at demystifying venture capital and startups. And then any book by Brad Feld does a really good job at breaking things down.
Yeah, a lot of reading, using just using the tools that seem interesting and like talking to friends and peers about stuff and ideas, meeting founders, learning from them.
Yeah. And definitely take advantage of all the new like technology and AI that's coming out for companies that I'm not as familiar with. Maybe I don't know going into the first call meeting like exactly what specific questions I should be asking because it's in a space that I don't know as much about quite yet. I'll just feed a bunch of information into the AI machine and have them spit out kind of like a first call template for me that gives me, an overview of the company, an overview of the market and the competitors, some good questions to ask. And of course, you never want to, just base your opinion solely off that, but it is a nice framework for you to start thinking about. So definitely take advantage of all of the different tools and technologies that are coming out.
So I was wondering if you're currently using AI in your diligence processes, and if you are, how is that impacting how you're viewing your startups?
Yeah, we definitely, when I say me, when I say we, I guess I mean me specifically. But kind of what I just mentioned with the first call stuff. So it's good for stuff like that. It's also good for just checking your work. So I'm writing I guess just an article for myself, honestly, just on value-based care and just a bunch of the different definitions and stuff. And then when I'm done, I'll run it through the AI machine and be like, is there anything that I missed? Is there anything that I have incorrect here? So kind of just the basic stuff like that. Um, I'm trying to think what else. I've been working on trying to curate a specific newsletter for my fund. So, we just talked about reading, and I feel like everyone in my fund reads different articles. But I think it would be super cool to curate a kind of MCP specific newsletter. So aggregating a bunch of stuff that's happening in the broader markets and generating some sort of daily newsletter for my team that tells us exactly what's going on in the spaces that we invest in, any new recent financings, stuff like that. So certainly a work in progress, but we are trying to implement AI where we can.
Yeah, for sure. Using it, we're using like recently been using Claude Code to analyze some like product data for later stage companies, or I think I have like 8 different projects open on OpenAI just for like uh spent like 2, 3 hours for each prompt and just wrote out like everything I think about before I like everything that I want like care about when I'm like looking through a deck, and so I can like put a deck in there and it like um, will screen it. Or I have like there's one for TAM analysis, and I just like spent 2, 3 hours writing everything I know about this, and it's just like now it's like yeah, it's gotten very good at doing like quick passes for me. Um, so for sure. And it's crazy because at the previous fund, I think I was looking at like I looked at like maybe 200, 300 growth companies, and it kind of feels like the intuition that you develop from looking at all those companies kind of doesn't matter anymore, because there's something that which is a beautiful thing, because there's like something that has the intuition of looking at hundreds of thousands of companies, so which is great.
That's a quick advice question from your perspective for the students about social media. And obviously we're streaming on LinkedIn. You guys were we did a lot of stuff together, whether it was like things that we did at the fund or things at VCIC or NASVF. We were often using LinkedIn, and perhaps actually Ammar and I were just talking about even use of Instagram. What advice do you have to them as sort of job seekers? It could be in the case of Ammar, even sort of a startup. Like, are there sort of good cases of student types using LinkedIn or Instagram to kind of get the attention of hirers or investors, or sort of any examples of bad uses of it? Because I think we often, as educators here, even sort of like, how do we train students to think more about public facing social media? I'm curious if you have any advice.
So I'm a huge fan of LinkedIn, and I think it's super important as students and as young professionals, because that's how you build your brand identity. So you have to be able to sell yourself, sell your skills. For me now, so again, still fairly new to my job, so I try to post on LinkedIn at least once a week to continue building my brand here in Kansas City and letting people know what I am working on, since our initiatives are so new. And I think it's definitely a great way to make new connections. So again, cold messaging people on LinkedIn is super helpful. I would say like when I was job hunting, I would like reach out to people in the like industry or company that I wanted to work at or was applying to, and making like a personable 2 sentences on why we should connect. So definitely build your LinkedIn identity.
Yeah, outside of LinkedIn, I would like Instagram is more of like a friend social thing. I don't think that's I don't know, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, Ammar and Regina, but I don't think that's like a source for job seekers to use. LinkedIn is definitely a big one. I don't really post on LinkedIn like Regina does, but I'll repost some stuff. And I think I might have like 1 or 2 posts, but certainly like the cold outreach, like definitely take advantage of the Case alumni network. Alumni are very, very willing, I have found, to chat with you, but make it personable if you can. Come to the call prepared. So that's a big one. And maybe for venture specifically, I guess it's called X now, but X has been like a huge thing for VCs. So they post on there a ton. I'm not a huge X user. I'm trying to be better, but maybe if you're not having as much success on LinkedIn, then go check out that platform and maybe VCs are a little bit more active there. But yeah, I would say LinkedIn is the main one. If you can be a LinkedIn warrior like Michael and Regina, then I think you'll definitely benefit from it.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of people get jobs from X, and funding from X. And I mean, social media, like there's Cluely who raised a bunch of money off. So there it exists.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I think we're almost at time, but I just wanted to say thank you for all of you for speaking. I certainly really enjoyed it. I think everyone else here got a lot out of it too. And yeah, look forward to continuing to follow all of your careers and everything. And I know all of you guys are active on LinkedIn, so I'm sure people here can reach out via there, and I'll turn it over to
Yeah,
Mike.
great. Let's thank these guys for doing it. Look forward to getting back. Just Will's here in Cleveland, but Regina and Mar, love to see you guys. Actually, Mar, hopefully we'll see you in San Francisco next month, which will be good. Just one quick announcement, because Britton, who runs our Think to Thrive grant program I'm representing today, those applications are due a week from today for anybody who wants to apply for that funding. And
Additionally,
Yeah.
next Friday, we are hosting a workshop on leveraging your LinkedIn.
whoa,
We are bringing in Michelle Halloran, who's an executive coach and is absolutely fantastic. I've attended that session quite a few times and always take something new away from it. So if you're looking to up your LinkedIn game, that's definitely something you should come to.
good to see everybody. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
So good to see everyone.
Just before you